Hey guys. All right. Today's episode on the Mindrise podcast is next level. I've got Christina Ioannides on, and she is the owner of Fabulous and Fearless. Today's topic really just took my breath away. She sent it in an email. We're going to talk about that in the episode, but I was just like, okay, wow, yes, let's talk about this. And it's that breast cancer was the best thing that ever happened to her. And I think that's pretty powerful to have that perspective. So not only is Christina going to share her story and her journey, but also this episode is chock full of really important sound bites when it comes to a mindset of resilience and strength, which I think is so powerful for all the different areas of our life. So tune in, maybe throw your earbuds in. We've got a little choice language here and there, but today is a really powerful episode that I'm telling you, I'm getting chills even introducing this episode right now. So if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe and share our episodes with your friends, because I know that the more the merrier, and a rising tide lifts all ships. And if you haven't already left us a review, we really appreciate it. But without further ado, join me with Christina Ioannides for today's episode on how breast cancer was the best thing that ever happened to her. I have met lots of people who have navigated cancer, different types of cancer. And in my experience, navigating those people is they have a gratitude. Well, my two experiences have been that they have a gratitude for being alive, but it's kind of that like, damn, I've run a really hard race and I'm exhausted, but I'm lucky to be alive. Okay, but they're tired. Or my experience of navigating people with cancer has been that they're pissed, they're angry about it. Like, WTF? You are this outlier, my friend. Like, meeting you, I mean, and I've known you in different capacities, but when you told me that you had cancer, you're surviving cancer, my head went and spun around, because I was like, well, she doesn't fit in this bucket, and she doesn't fit in this bucket. I mean, yes, you're a grateful person, but that's like, you're living out loud. So
yeah, it's the only way to live.
right. And then we said, let's do this podcast. We're so excited. And then I said, okay, well, what title are we going with? And you then informed me that we're going with a title of breast cancer was the best thing that happened to me. And I was like,
Of course I would.
of course you would. I'm like, all right. So help me understand this. How? And I mean, I know everyone listening is probably, in a similar perspective as me. It's not a journey that I've been on to date, and explain this to me, because I love this perspective, and I think that we could probably apply it to even more things than just cancer. But how was breast cancer the best thing that ever happened to you?
All right, so I'm not going to take you from the beginning. I'll sort of go a little bit to the beginning, go to the end, and then we'll sort of work our way back to the beginning. I mean, obviously, when I first heard the news, I was devastated. I was like, how did this happen? I'd leveled up my health, was healthy, I was fit. I mean, it was just like, how did this happen? A million questions like run through my mind. I called my sister, who's also a breast cancer survivor. I told her, I was crying. As the next few days went on, I just tried to process it. Then eventually, I just learned to embrace it. I also had told Jen, actually. Jen did help me work through it. We had a call. One of the things she said to me, she says, maybe this is for you. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? This is for me. I can't say that I was very happy to hear those words at the time. But, like anything, I processed them. And as time went on, I learned to embrace it. And I continued my life as normal. I exercised, I ran. I mean, no one knew what was going on. The only thing that was more was that, I was seeing more doctors, doing more testing and so forth. And to answer your question as to why do I say it's the best thing that happened to me, after the whole, well, let's say most of the journey was all said and done, and I look back at 2021 after 3 surgeries, I had a journey that was very smooth, very positive. As you know, I know you're following me on Instagram. I mean, I was just not expecting that. It was very surreal. But the one thing I know that I did do is that I totally prepared myself for it. Like my goal before my first surgery, I was going to be physically fit, mentally and emotionally healthy, and spiritually very strong. And I was in all four areas. I totally believe like that helped me to both prepare myself and fight the good fight, which I did. As I like to say, I'm both a karate fighter and a breast cancer fighter now, championing both.
Right.
And why did I use the title? I've come to learn that these kind of challenges, honestly, they're there for us to learn from, to grow from, to make us stronger, and to know that there is always light at the end of the tunnel and a golden nugget. But it's up to us to find it. So,
Right. So, Christina, like you made mention of like, yeah, you're a breast cancer fighter and you're also a martial arts, fighter. So, you're probably going to have to take us back in the
days.
time machine a little bit there, but like, in what ways did your martial arts training prepare you to like then fight cancer and be ready for that battle?
So I have been, at the time, I'd been training for about 33 years. I started in South Africa, then came to America, continued the same style. As you know, it's a real passion of mine. I love it. So, how did it prepare me? I think just like all the years of both training and tournament training, going out, competing on the mat, losing, coming back, trying again. You keep going. You don't let the loss discourage you. You get back up, you get back on the mat, you try again. And I think it's sort of the same mentality. I don't even think I realized it at the time, but it was probably just so ingrained in me that, okay, I have cancer, like I have to fight it. There is no other choice. Like I just got to keep going. You feel sorry for yourself a little bit, you get discouraged, you ask a million questions like how this happens. The same thing at a tournament when you lose, but you got to go back to the mat, you got to figure it out, and you just keep pushing forward. So yeah, I would certainly say that all my years of training, both mentally and physically, certainly did help me.
Yeah, I have chills as you're saying this because you nailed it. It's, yeah, sure, you were trained physically, so one would say like, okay, physically, like she was healthy to then navigate and battle cancer. But you hit the nail, and I have chills again, like even like saying it again, is that mental resilience. Like that's what I hear, just mental resilience and mental toughness. And I mean, and help me understand, do you think that it's full on resilience, like hardcore Goonies never say die, like, I'm going to fight to the death? Or do you feel like it's a resilience with compassion and has a little fluidity to it? Like when we talk about that mental strength, that not only that you gained over, multiple decades of martial arts, then here we are with a cancer battle and needing to lean on that strength. And then, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit in the podcast as well, then just say, oh yeah, no big deal, I'm fighting cancer, I'm going to start my own business. Right? So help us understand like mental strength. How do you define that? What are the qualities of your mental strength that allows you to be who you are, girlfriend? Because holy crow, you're a powerhouse.
I would have to say one of the first things would probably be my upbringing, and my dad especially, a big influence from him. Both my parents, but my dad especially. My dad always says like, you got to get up every day and you just have to battle life. Like you get up, you have to battle life, you have to battle yourself. And I think just over the years, it's probably just been ingrained in me. I probably didn't take it as seriously, him just saying it over and over. You're like, yeah, sure thing. But now at a time when I so needed it, it probably just, came in full force.
Right.
And, I just had to battle it. There's just no, it's almost like you don't have a choice. I had made a choice. Actually, I'd look back in my diary that I had kept as I went along, both before I got diagnosed and after. And I'd actually written in my diary shortly, a few days after I'd been formally diagnosed, I actually wrote in there and said, I will beat this and I will win. I don't even actually recall writing that till I saw that.
Right.
So I had made a choice from the very beginning that I was going to beat this to like no other.
Right.
And so, I think when it comes to mental strength, it's both about training your mind to be strong, and also the choices that we make.
Right.
Look, I mean, not every day is going to be great. Not every day was great. There was times where I certainly got, knocked down and I was in a slump. And that's going to happen. That's part of the process. But you can't allow yourself to stay there. Like, you work through it, you're allowed to happen, and then you have to just learn and train yourself, to get out of that slump. And, that just comes with like mind strength. It's just like training, just like anything else, just like exercise, weight training, running, whatever it is that you can do. The way you train your body, you have to learn to train your mind as well.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's a blend of habits, right, and decision, and it sounds like it's also discipline in some ways, and we can fall off, life happens, we fall off, but it's that choice, like your dad said, to get back up.
I mean, discipline is definitely a big key. I would attribute my success in karate to discipline. I was just very disciplined to train especially even harder during the tournaments, to put in the additional hours needed. You do. It's very much, discipline and self-discipline.
Right.
Because you have to do it on your own as well. And no one's going to tell you to do it. No one can force you to do it. But you just have to discipline yourself to either get up earlier, later, whatever the case is. You just have to figure it out.
Right. I'm sure you've all heard the saying, nothing changes if nothing changes. And that's true. It's really hard to make change in our life without taking the time to actually look at the way that we're showing up in the world and the thoughts that we have that really dictate the way that we show up in the world. That is why we created the 90-Day Elevate Journal. You're definitely going to want to grab this, and it's available now on Amazon. The 90-Day Elevate Journal is essentially designed for you to take a deep dive into what it really means to rise, transform, and lead. Grab your copy for less than $20. You can always visit www.themindrise.com/elevate or check it out in the show notes. But you need to grab your copy of the 90-Day Journal now and really elevate to the next level. Well, okay, so I'm gonna toss this in your direction. So yesterday, I roll out of a beginner's tennis clinic. I started tennis probably this spring, and I mean, I've got a lot of skills, and I'll be the first person to say tennis is really not one of them. It's just, Christina, I swear, every time I go to hit the ball, someone put a hole in my racket. The ball goes over it, the ball goes under it. I could attribute it to being a soccer player, that I was always supposed to put my body in front of the ball, so my hand extended, and then a racket extended. I don't have the perception. But I was struggling a couple months ago with I would get on a court and my brain would start to go, I suck, or I'm disappointing the other person because I'm, not as good of a player. And it was interesting because, we know self-talk cycle, our words then dictate our feelings, which dictate our actions. So my feelings was I felt like crap. And my actions were like, I wasn't trying as hard. And I've gotten better over time. But it's just so interesting, that dance of, negative beliefs will come into your mind, and you got to tend to them. I don't know what your thoughts are, but those negative beliefs, if you just let them stay, it's almost like a weed in the garden. Those weeds somehow go all over the place. So what do you do when you're faced with a negative belief that pops into your mind? How do you tend to that? Because I certainly couldn't say to myself, oh, you're wonderful. Oh, you're great. You're a tennis all-star. My mind would be like, yeah, BS, forget it. So I'm so curious, how do you tend to the garden of your mind? How do you navigate those negative beliefs that come in? And do you have any advice for me about tennis? Because I'm really struggling here.
Do I have advice about tennis? No, the last time I played tennis, I was in grade school. I don't recall doing very well. So I'm going to say no on that one. Happy to give you a lot of karate advice, but not tennis. I mean, the only thing I could say about tennis is coordination. But that really applies to almost any sport. So that's my tennis advice. As far as the negative talk, as you know, I took Jen on as a life coach January of 21. Ironically, a few months before I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Right.
I would certainly say working with Jen around mind, training, thoughts, and so forth was extremely helpful. She definitely helped me see other ways and just how to train the mind, even more so than I knew from my parents and my dad specifically. And I think with just her help and with all the work and then the cancer, you just realize how much you just have to work at it mentally. The training again that I speak of, just like the karate training, just like the exercise.
Right.
I finally found to discover and learn that it's the same thing. Well, the one we do physically and we quote unquote feel it in our bodies, and the other one is mental, and we have to do the same kind of training.
Right. So I'm curious. So here you are, right? Okay, January 2021, you get a coach, and our fabulous, Jen Wiledge, everybody knows Jen. So fabulous Jen comes into your life, and you had no idea about, a couple months later, we've got this cancer diagnosis. And so then emotional roller coaster, but then you make this decision, like, I will beat this, I will fight this, and I will win. Like, that's what's happening here. So here you are on your journey, you're living life, and I just got this like my appointment or surgery, or just gonna fit it in my regular schedule. So where did the inspiration to start your business, Fabulous and Fearless, like where did that come? Was it your copious spare time? Like where did this come from for you?
So I'm gonna bring it back to the pandemic, which is the same year, I was working with Jen. I would have to say that the pandemic was very good to me. I know it wasn't for a lot of people, and I fully understand that. I was in a very fortunate situation. I was working from home, so I had additional time. I started running as a form of exercise to get outside. As I told you, I hated it, but I grew to love it and have become one of those runners now. Then then I got nominated for a 25 push-up challenge by my karate group, which is an international organization. 25 push-ups for 25 days to raise awareness for depression and mental illness. You had to post in social media and nominate another person. So I did it for 25 days, posted them, nominated somebody else. And then after the 25 days, I noticed I felt stronger and I just loved them.
Right.
I continued on, the challenge ended, and every day I did push-ups, I did more. In September, I challenged myself to learn to do Superman push-ups. And for those of you who don't know, you like fly in the air, if only for a brief second. After a lot of falling, I figured it out and managed to do them. And the year went on, I kept on posting the push-ups, and people were just inspired by it. It just kind of took a life of its own. There was no planning behind it. People were just telling me, you're very inspirational, watching your push-ups, very cool. I thought nothing of it, really. I was just kind of just doing it for fun. We were in lockdown, like, here's something to do.
Right.
The year rolled around. Then 2021 came, I hired Jen. And then I decided, after kind of looking back at 2020, I thought, I want to push this a little bit more with this inspiration, the karate. I had started teaching karate over Zoom during COVID. So then I thought, I kind of want to make something of this. And so with one of my students and a friend, I started a Facebook business page. And that's kind of where it was. We did that. We put up my karate. I put that I teach self-defense and karate and so forth, and just kind of went along with that. Then, of course, I was diagnosed in March and April of 2021. Of course, at that point, then I just had to pivot. I kind of had to refocus things and focus on getting everything done, set myself up for prepare myself for surgery, which my first one was in May. In the meantime, I had continued doing everything. I was running, I was doing push-ups, hanging from the jungle gyms, my usual. There was like nothing different about what was going on. But, as I said, I was just seeing more doctors and doing more testing and just getting ready for surgery. So, of course, my first surgery came in May. That went well. As you know, my mastectomy came out, pain-free. I thank God for that. Honestly, I truly believe that he definitely helped me come through. That along with my preparation, but spiritually very much so.
Yeah.
And my second surgery was in beginning of September, right before Labor Day.
Right.
I was feeling good, so I had let everyone know. I put on social media that I had had cancer. I had breast cancer. And so then I decided to do a 10-day sit-up challenge before the second surgery. Got everyone involved in that.
Yes, you did. Everybody.
Second surgery went well. I'm sure you took part in it. Second surgery went well as well. I recovered, went back to work for a few weeks. And my third surgery at the end of November, right after Thanksgiving. Before the surgery, I did a 7-day leg challenge, got everyone into that, because why not? I was willing to challenge it. Remember, it started with a push-up challenge. Right. I said that was the impetus.
I love it.
So then third surgery was a little bit more involved. I was in a bit of pain for a couple of days, but fortunately that subsided. And then, as always, just looking back in 2021, I thought, what? I really want to grow this and make something of this. I look back at my journey and as I said in the beginning of this podcast, I had such a smooth and positive journey. At times felt very surreal to me. I mean, I had even people saying to me, "Are you putting up a front because you're always just, so strong?" And I was like, honestly, I'm not. I'm like, this is just how I genuinely feel. Was every day great? No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But, I would have to say overall, I had a very positive and smooth journey. So with that, I decided then in end of 21, beginning of 22, that I want to grow it. I want to make more of it. And so I started the beginnings of, deciding to build out a website. I put together the focus group. I got some great feedback back from that group that were, very instrumental in helping me decide and what to put out. And so I got a web developer, developed the site, and launched it in July of 2022.
Yeah. I mean, we were in, because you and I went to Greece together for the retreat.
A fantastic trip.
And I remember not only were you making videos and content at that time, but you were going back and forth with your web developer. And I love it because it wasn't a matter of, when you go on vacation with somebody or you do an event with somebody and they're like the person that's always on their phone. You were so determined. You're like, yep, I got to do this. And oh, here I am back on the retreat. And I don't want to say it's like completely compartmentalizing, but you are one of the things that if I had to give a speech about you, it would be that you have always struck me as a woman on a mission. Like you're on a mission.
I like that.
Yeah, you're on a mission. You're not a bulldozer. You're on a mission. And like, as you're like climbing up the mountain and you are either saying like, hey, come climb the mountain with me. Or if somebody's watching, you're like, oh, that mountain climbing thing look good. Like, you're like, oh yeah, more the merrier. Like, let's all climb.
Or the donkey ride.
Or the donkey ride. Or grab a donkey if you don't want to climb. It's fine. It's fine. Oh my heavens. I know everybody who's listening right now is probably like, what kind of retreat was this? Don't worry.
A fun one.
A very fun one. When in Greece, you need a donkey for sure. So, as I'm listening to you share your story and your journey with us and, just thinking about you as a person on a mission, and you shared very publicly on your social media about your cancer journey. Meanwhile, like interspersing that with your challenges. What kind of feedback? I'm curious, like what kind of feedback did you get from people? Did you like, did you find that they were supportive? Because of course, like, I think we tend to want to look at like, okay, we've got a support system, but what kind of feedback did you get in being so public about your journey?
So before I answer that question, I'm going to preface it with before I disclose it publicly, I had sent out an email to friends and family, so they knew about it, sort of a select group. But before I did disclose it on social media, which was about 5 weeks after my first surgery, I won't tell you, I was extremely nervous, and was really questioning if it was the right idea.
Interesting. Okay.
My initial thought was to let people know, at the end of the journey, what had gone on.
Right.
And ironically, kudos to my first cousin Socrates, who were at Easter, I told him about what I was going to do. And I said to him I was going to do it at the end of the journey. He's like, Chris, come on. He's like, you're so inspirational. He's like, bring people on your journey. You can't do it all the way at the end. And I thought to myself, really? He's like, of course. He's like, at the end, no one's going to care then. And so I don't say no one's going to care, but it wouldn't have been the same, wouldn't have had the same impact.
Okay.
And so he really planted the seed for me to, bring people on my journey. Spoke to a couple of other friends. I mean, this is where, you talk about trusting yourself. I was nervous. So the week I shot the video, I was nervous. And ironically, I shot it on the beach. And as I was videoing, a woman saw me and said, hey, can I help you? And because I'd had my T-shirt that said fight cancer, and it said, I can. And she said to me, I'm also a breast cancer survivor.
Wow.
I mean, just pure luck. She's like, can I help you? Can I video it for you? So she held the phone, she videoed, and I did my story. So yeah, I mean, life works in mysterious ways.
I was gonna say, yeah, tell me that wasn't like put on your path.
So anyway, cleaned up the video, and even when I had it, I was just like, should I do this? Should I not do it? Should I do it? Should I not do it? And back and forth. Eventually, I was like, I just got to do it. I had a session with Jen earlier that week, and she's like, you just have to do it. I was like, okay.
Right.
So, like I said, 5 weeks later, I posted on my social media platforms, and honestly, the support was very positive. I mean, hundreds of people reached out to me, both through social media, privately, whatever platform, and send their support to me, letting me know that I can get through this, fight the good fight. We know you're a fighter. A lot of people had seen me do karate over the years, had said to me, we know you're a fighter, you'll fight this too. And so, yeah, it was a huge outpouring from everywhere. People that I had even forgotten about, people that I, maybe had crossed paths once. I mean, it was very heartfelt, it was very warm, and honestly, it was very humbling.
Wow. Wow. So, yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, we never know what someone else is going through, right? Especially, I think, and it's been my own experience, some of my most painful times were the ones when I was most put together, right? Like my lipstick was on point, my hair was on point, everything is fine, right? And I think it takes an immense amount of courage to be vulnerable and open yourself up. And it didn't sound to me, Chris, like you opened yourself up because you wanted, everyone to say, oh, let's take care of Christina. Instead, it's again, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like that woman on a mission where you're like, okay, here I go. This is what I'm doing. You didn't necessarily know the outcome. I mean, you planned and you're like, well, I'm going to fight it and I'm going to win. So I already know how the story ends. That's what I do. Oh my gosh. So tell me, how does that mindset that you have, how does that filter into Fabulous and Fearless and the work that you do now with self-defense and corporate wellness? How does that fit in? Because I'm sure people listening to this episode, I mean, gosh, if they're not inspired and their hair's not standing on end like mine is, and they're listening and they want to, reach out. They want to get involved. They want to follow you. And of course, we're going to put all of that in the show notes. But so tell us, how does that mindset, how does your story, how does your fortitude, how does that fit into your work in Fabulous and Fearless?
So, as you know, Fabulous and Fearless does, I have programs for self-defense. I teach karate and the corporate wellness, both from a self-defense programs as well as motivational speaking. So how does it fit in? With my self-defense classes, knowing self-defense is a skill that everyone should know. It's a life skill that can save your life, both emotionally and physically. When I teach, I not only teach to help the participants be safe and have safety tips and tools, but I help them to be safe and also build their confidence that once they leave my class, that they're not fearful and or that they, have less fear, that they can go out there and should something happen, they know what to do. They're not just going to be stuck with like a deer in the headlights and just completely frozen thinking, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do and I'm just so scared.
Right.
So, I try to eliminate that fear of being scared. And then also just, as I teach both from a educational point of view, theoretical, as I call it, and a practical. And, the theoretical part is, to be aware, to be able to foresee danger and move away from it before something happens. And so I try to instill that in the participants.
Right.
So how does that come in with Fabulous and Fearless? Again, it's a mindset. Am I scared and frozen, or does my fight and flight response come into play and I can do something? And that is very much a mindset. It's not, self-defense is not just a physical aspect. It's very much a mindset aspect. So
Right.
self-defense comes into that. My karate, as I've spoken about earlier, it has a lot to do with mindset and training and trying and constantly just coming back to the mat and improving, not only physically, but mentally as well. And, I try to impart that on my students that I teach. And then, of course, my motivational speaking, to tell my story, my cancer story, self-defense, and or both.
Right. It's so interesting. I was having a conversation with a group of women, actually my tennis ladies, and we're driving back from tennis, and there's 4 of us in the car, and all 4 of us as women, also all 4 of us have daughters. And we're talking about the difference between the masculine perspective of, well, I'm walking down the street and I'm just walking and I'm just doing my thing, versus as a woman, like sometimes I'll look over my shoulder if it's, dark or late at night, or I'm headed to my car. Like even right now, now I know, okay, make sure that I park when I go to park, and it's daylight right now, but I know I'm going to come out in the dark, park under a street light. So I hear what you're saying about that awareness. And the interesting part, even as you're saying it, and I'm like, okay, we're going to have to set up a self-defense class for Mindrise. We'll just invite everybody and have Christina come. I'm serious about that, Christina, because
I'd love to.
I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I feel like I'm physically strong, but if I was approached, I have no idea what to do. I have no idea. I know to punch a shark in the nose. That's just about it that I know when it comes to oh, and a bear, you got to lay down and play dead, which I don't
know about that.
Best plan. Like pretty sure I'm going to run away. But yeah, it's so interesting how, especially, I don't know, as a woman, the conversation with the ladies and I was just like, we want our daughters to be safe. We don't want to scare them and put fear in them, but we want them to know they're capable. And then as we're even talking, I'd say to myself, well, I don't know that I know what to do in that situation. And it's like, I think it extends. Yes, we think about it for our daughters, or we think about it for our friends, or we think about it for our siblings, but you're right. when we're faced with a situation like that, reacting from that place of fear versus using the catalyst of the fight or flight to say, I know what to do in this situation. I'll be okay. Doesn't mean I'm going to like be super risky and like go hang out somewhere where I don't belong. I mean, obviously, or like, be like, I'm parking in the dark part of the mall parking lot. Like, that's not what I'm doing here. But yeah, I think that you make a great point. It is mindset and it is skill when it comes to self-defense, empowerment.
Because your mindset, if you know something, is very different than when, and I know a lot of women, because I've spoken to them, who just, they walk around, especially if it's by themselves and at night,
right?
Walk around and they're scared because they just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And you hope that nothing will ever happen. But the reality is, something can happen. And what you don't want to be is in the situation of, like you just described, I have no idea what to do. And now something does happen, your heart's racing, you're scared, you're wondering what's going to happen to you. What do I do? That is not a situation you want to find yourself in. If you know something, you at least can say, you know what, I have a fighting chance. I can do something. I'm not just, as I like to say, stuck with a deer in the headlights and petrified, the heart's racing, and you just kind of put your hands up and say, I'm done. I just don't know what to do. You just don't want to fall victim to that. That is not the situation you want to be in. Look, I'm not saying that if you know something that things can't happen. That's not what I'm saying. But you increase your chances of being able to defend yourself when you know even something. And your mindset very much so is very different. Very different.
Mm. Yeah. Well, in this, as we wrap up, I'm thinking sounds the similar approach to what you took when it came to cancer. You didn't know everything, but you worked toward knowing what you could find out. You built yourself a plan, you responded accordingly, and you didn't fall victim, right? You made the choice. And I think that things happen. Yeah, of course. In all facets of life, things happen. And at the same time, when you choose your mindset, like, I'm not going to be a victim of this situation. Like, yeah, this sucks. Yeah, I didn't see this coming, right? It's almost like a person who gets lung cancer and they've never smoked a day in their life. And you go like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, didn't you notice I'm drinking the green juice? I'm doing the workouts, like, but in so many ways you've made a decision. Like, this is who I'm going to be in this situation. And I think that goes for whether you're battling cancer or you are preparing yourself for self-defense, or just navigating life. And I won't be a victim of this. I will get up again.
Yeah, I think, you summarized it well. In looking back, when it came to my cancer, I made sure to prepare myself. I think you make a choice. You certainly have a choice. You can prepare yourself. Look, not every outcome is going to be the way you want it to be. Right. Even if you follow all that. I mean, that's life as well. But in my situation, I made sure to prepare myself. I made a choice to prepare myself, and I didn't fall victim to it. And it's the same thing with self-defense. Taking a class and learning something is preparing yourself. Do I hope that the physical stuff that I teach, you never have to use? I always tell my participants that. I always say, I hope everything I show you here, except for the common sense behaviors, the awareness, the educational part, I hope that you never have to use it. But you know what? They have prepared themselves for it. And I think that's just a critical part in life in general. You make choices, and those choices you make, you are hope that they're the right ones, and just prepare yourself as best you can.
Right. I love it. I love it. Christina, this is such a great conversation, and it's so powerful. And yeah, I'm going to have you on for another episode because, well, I think that it is about mental strength. It is about mindset. It is about toughness. It is about, the identity that we choose. You chose, like, hands down, not going to be a victim. Like, actually, I'm going to be a fighter. This is how I identify myself. And then therefore, our words dictate our feelings. Okay, I'm strong. I've got this. I'm going to have some crappy days, but I'm going to get back up. And then here are my actions. Yeah, just going to host it like 3 challenges while I'm having
through
major
cancer.
surgery, and kicking cancer's ass, like no big deal, right? So it's so powerful and it's so inspirational, and you are a testament to what's possible, and you're a woman on a mission. Look what you've done, look what you've built, and look where you're going. So I'm going to close things out, but letting everybody know that you can connect with Christina. All the notes are going to be, and all the information is going to be in the show notes. Oh, my tongue is getting faster than my brain. And then you can also find her on fabulousfearless.com. We'll throw your Instagram in here as well, because that's where all the good stuff is on her Instagram, and on her Facebook is where all the good stuff is, because Christina is out there living it. So thank you so much, my friend, for being here with us today and sharing your story.
Thank you. This was wonderful. I really appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to share my story.